The station name from London St Pancras comes from the St Pancras parish, which originates to the 4th century Christian boy martyr Pancras of Rome. The station was commissioned by the Midland Railway, who had a network of routes into the Midlands and in South and West Yorkshire and Lancashire, but no route of its own to London. Before 1857, the Midland Railway used the lines of the London North Western Railway for trains into the capital. Subsequently, the company's Leicester and Hitchin Railway gave access to London via the Great Northern Railway. In 1862, traffic for the Second International Exhibition suffered extensive delays over the stretch into London over the Great Northern's tracks. The route into the city via the London North Western Railway was also at capacity, with coal trains causing the network at Rugby and elsewhere to reach effective gridlock. This was the stimulus for the Midland Railway to build its own line from London to Bedford, which would be just over 50 miles long. Samuel Carter was solicitor for the parliamentary bill, which was sanctioned in 1863. The main economic justification for the Midland Railway extension was for the transport of coal and other goods to the capital, which was hindered by the 1s.9d toll of the Great Northern Railway. A large goods station was constructed between 1862 and 1865, sited to the west of the King's Cross Coal Depot between the North London Railway and the Regent's Canal. Although coal and goods were the main motivation for the London extension, the Midland realised the prestige of having a central London passenger terminus and decided it must have a front of Euston Road. The company purchased the eastern section of land on the road's north side road, owned by Earl Somers. The passenger station was constructed by William Henry Barlow and constructed on the site that had previously been slum called Arga Town. The approaching line to the station crossed by the Regent's Canal, a height allowing the line reasonable gradients. This resulted in the level of the line at St Pancras being 20 foot above ground level. By contrast, the line to the adjacent King's Cross station tunnel under the Regent Canal. Initial plans were for 2 a free-span roof, with the void between the station and ground level filled with spoil from tunnelling to join the Midland Mainline on the St Pancras branch. Instead, due to the value of the lands in such a location, the lower area was used for freight, in particular beer from Burton. As a result, the undercroft was built with columns and girders, maximising space set out for the same plans as those used for beer warehouses, with the basic unit of length that of a beer barrel. The contract for the construction of the station's substructure and connecting was given to Messrs. Waring, with Barlow's assistant Campion as supervisor. The lower floor of beer warehousing contained interior columns 15 foot wide and 48 foot deep, carrying girders supporting the main station and track. The connections for the widened lines ran below the station's bottom level in an east to west direction. To avoid the foundations of the roof interfering with the space beneath and to simplify the design and minimise cost, it was decided to construct a single-span roof, which crossed ties for the arch at the station level. The arch was sprung directly from the station with no piers. Additional advice on the station design of the roof was given to Barlow by Roland Mason Ordish. The arch's ribs with a web depth of 6 foot, mostly ironwork, and the span width for the wall-to-wall was 245 foot 6 inches, with every rib every 29 foot 4 inches. The arch was a slightly pointed design with a reduced radius and curvature at springing points. The Butterley Company was contracted to construct the arches. The total cost of the 24-rib roof and glazing was over £53,000, of which over half was for the main ribs, and the cost of the gable end was a further £8,500. The single-span oval roof was one of the largest such structures in the world at the time of its completion. The materials used were wrought iron framework of a lattice design, with glass covering the middle half and timber inside, slate outside, covering the outer quarters. The 2 end screens were glazed in a vertical rectangular grid direction with decorative timber cladding around the edge and wrought iron finials and around the outer edge. It was 680 foot 9 foot long, 240 foot wide and 100 feet high at the apex above the tracks. Local services began running to the Metropolitan Railway junction underneath the terminus on the 13th of July 1868, and the station itself opened to the public on the 1st of October the same year, with the first service being an overnight mail service to Leeds. St Pancras was built during the period of expansion for the Midland Railway, as the major routes to Manchester, Nottingham, Sheffield and Carlisle opened during this time. By 1902 there were 150 trains arriving or leaving the station daily, though this figure was far less than Waterloo or Liverpool Street. As well as Midland services, the Great Eastern Railway used St Pancras as a West End terminus for trains to Great Yarmouth, Norwich and Lowestoft between 1870 and 1917. At the turn of the 20th century, St Pancras had a faster service to Cambridge than King's Cross did at 71 minutes. Great Eastern Railway services were suspended because of the First World War and never resumed. The London, Tilbury and South End Railway began boat service trains to St Pancras on the 9th of July 1894, following the opening of the Tottenham and Forest Gate Railway. The trains ran from St Pancras to Tilbury via South Tottenham and Barking. Tilbury docks then provided the connection to Australia and Scandinavia. The following year, the London, Tilbury and South End Railway began a service from St Pancras to Southend Central, with boat trains continuing to run from St Pancras until 1963, after which they were moved to Liverpool Street and Fenchurch Street. The Railways Act of 1921 forced the merger of the Midland with the London North Western Railway into the London Midland and Scottish Railway, and the LMS adopted the LNWR's Euston station as its principal London terminus. The Midland Grand Hotel was closed in 1935, and the building was subsequently used as offices for British Railways. During the Second World War, bombing inflicted damage on the train shed, which was only partially reglazed after the war. On the night of the 10th and 11th of May 1941, a bomb fell on the station floor at Platform 3, exploding in the beer vaults underneath. The station was not significantly damaged, but was closed for 8 days, with platforms 2 and 3 remaining closed until June. In 1947, the St Pancras Junction was relayed with prefabricated track work, along with associated changes to the signalling system. On the creation of the British Railways in 1948, St Pancras received a significant investment after neglect by the London Midland and Scottish Railway. Destination included the London area services to North Woolwich, St Albans and Bedford. Long-distance trains reached Glasgow, Leeds, Nottingham, Sheffield and Manchester, with famous train names including the Palatine to Manchester, the Thames Clyde Express to Glasgow, and the Master Cutler to Sheffield, which transferred from King's Cross in 1966, which itself had transferred from Marylebone 8 years earlier. On the 7th of October 1957, the signalling at St Pancras was upgraded, replacing the 3 original boxes with a power box controlling 205 route switches and 33 points over a network of 1,400 relays. From 1960 to 1966, electrification work on the West Coast Main Line between London and Manchester saw a new blue Midland Pullman from Manchester to London St Pancras. These trains and those to Glasgow were withdrawn following the completion of the rebuilding of Euston and the consideration of these services. By the 1960s, St Pancras was seen as redundant, and several attempts were made to close it and demolish the hotel by then known as St Pancras Chambers. These attempts provoked strong and successful opposition, with the campaign led by the latter poet laureate John Betjeman. Jane Hughes Fawcett with the Victorian Society was instrumental in its preservation and was dubbed the Furious Mrs. Fawcett by British rail officials. Many of the demonstrators had witnessed the demolition of the nearby Euston Arch a few years previously and were strongly opposed to the distinctive architecture of St Pancras suffering the same fate. The station became Grade 1 listed building in November 1967, preventing any drastic modifications. The plans were scrapped by British Railways in December of 1968, realised that it was more cost effective to modernise the hotel instead, although they disliked owning it. In the 1970s, the train shed roof was in danger of collapse, and the newly appointed Director of Environment, Bernard Corcus, persuaded the company to invest £3 million to save it. In 1978, a private eye piece said that British Rail really wanted to demolish St Pancras, but were opposed by the lot of long-haired sentimentalists and faceless bureaucrats, and praised the office blocks that replaced the Euston Arch. The station offices in the listed former Midland Grand Hotel building were subsequently refurbished in 1993, including a new roof of 275 tons of Westmoreland green slate. After the sectorisation of the British Rail in 1986, mainline services to the East Midlands were provided by the intercity sector, with suburban services to Albans, Luton and Bedford by Network South East. In 1988, the Snow Hill Tunnel reopening resulted in the creation of the Thameslink route, and the resultant diversion of the majority of suburban services to the new route. The station continued to be served by trains running on the Midland Mainline to Leicester, Nottingham and Sheffield, together with a few suburban services to Bedford and Luton. These constituted only a few trains an hour and left the station underused. Following the privatisation of the British Rail, the long-distance services from St Pancras were franchised to Midland Mainline, a train operating company owned by National Express, starting on the 28th of April 1996. The few remaining suburban services still operated in St Pancras were operated by the Thameslink Trains operating company owned by Gavia from the 2nd of March 1997. A small number of trains to and from Leeds were introduced, mainly because the high-speed train sets were maintained there and were already running empty north of Sheffield. During the 2000s major rebuild of the West Coast Mainline, the St Pancras was again hosted direct and regular intercity trains to Manchester, this time via the Hope Valley route via the Dore South Curve under the title Project Rio. The original plan for the Channel Tunnel rail link involved a tunnel from southeast of London to an underground terminus in the vicinity of King's Cross. However, a late change of plan, principally driven by the then Secretary of State for the Environment Michael Heseltine's desire for the urban regeneration of East London, led to a change of the route, with a new line approaching London from the east. This opened the possibility of reusing St Pancras as a terminus, with access via the North London line which crossed the throat of the station. The idea of using the North London line was rejected in 1994 by the Transport Secretary John McGregor as difficult to construct and environmentally damaging. However, the idea of using St Pancras Station as the terminus was retained, albeit now linked by a 12.4 miles of new tunnels from Dagenham to Stratford. The London Continental Railways, created at the time of the British Rail privatisation, was selected by the government in 1996 to reconstruct St Pancras, build the Channel Tunnel rail link and take over the British share of Eurostar operations. LCR had owned St Pancras Station since privatisation to allow the station to be redeveloped, but financial difficulties in 1998 and the collapse of Railtrack in 2001 caused some revision to this plan, but the LCR retained ownership of the station. The design and project management of reconstruction was undertaken on behalf of LCR by Rail-Link Engineering, a consortium of Bechtel, Arup, Zistra and Halcro. The original reference for the design for the station was by Nick Derbyshire, former head of British Rail's in-house architecture team. The master plan of the complex was by Foster and Partners, and the lead architect for the reconstruction was Alistair Lansley, a former colleague of Nick Derbyshire recruited by RLE. To accommodate 300 metres new Eurostar trains and to provide capacity for the existing trains of the Midlands and the new Kent services and the high-speed rail link, the train shed was extended a considerable distance northwards by a new flat-roofed shed. The station was initially planned to have 13 platforms under this extended train shed. East Midland services would use the western platforms, Eurostar the middle platforms, and the Kent services the eastern platforms. The Eurostar platforms and one of the Midland platforms would extend back into Barlow's train shed. Access to Eurostar for departing passengers would be via a departure suite on the west of the station, and then to platforms by a bridge above the tracks within the historic train shed. Arriving Eurostar passengers would then leave the station by a new concourse on the north end. The original design was later modified with access to the Eurostar platforms from below using the station undercroft, and to allow the deletion of the visually intrusive bridge. By dropping the extension of any of the Midland platforms into the train shed, space was freed up to allow wells to be constructed in the station floor, which provided daylight and access to the undercroft. The reconstruction of the station was recorded for the British BBC television documentary The £800 Million Railway Station, broadcast in 6 30-minute episodes between the 13th and 28th of November 2007. By early 2004, the eastern side of the extended train shed was complete and the Barlow train shed was closed to trains. From the 12th of April 2004, Midland Mainline trains terminated at an interim station occupying the eastern part of the extension immediately adjacent to the entrance. As part of the construction of the western side of the new train shed that now begun, an underground box was constructed to house new platforms for Thameslink, which at this point ran partially under the extended station. In order for this to happen, the existing Thameslink tunnels between Kentish Town and King's Cross Thameslink were closed between the 11th of September 2004 and the 15th of May 2005 whilst works were carried out. Thameslink services from the north terminated in the same platforms as the Midland Mainline trains, while services from the south terminated at King's Cross Thameslink. When the lines were reopened, the new station box was still only a bare concrete shell and could not take passengers. Thameslink trains reverted to their previous route but ran through the station box without stopping. The budget for the Channel Tunnel Rail Link works did not include work on fitting out the station, as these works had been originally part of the separate Thameslink 2000 works programme. Despite lobbying by rail operators who wished to see the station open at the same time as St Pancras International, the government failed to provide additional funding to allow the fit-out works to be completed immediately following the line's blockade. Eventually, on the 8th of February 2006, Alistair Darling, the Secretary of State for Transport, announced £50 million of funding for the fit out of the station, plus another £10 to £15 million for the installation of associated signalling and other lineside works. The fit out works were designed by Chapman Taylor and Arup Eurostar and completed by ISG Interior plc, collaborating with Betchell as project managers. The client was London and Continental Railways, who were advised by Hitachi Consulting. In 2005, planning consent was granted for the refurbishment of the former Midland Grand Hotel building, with plans to refurbish and extend it as a hotel and apartment block. The newly refurbished hotel opened to guests on the 21st of March 2011, with a grand opening ceremony on the 5th of May. By the middle of 2006, the western side of the train shed extension was completed, and the rebuilding cost was in the region of £800 million, up from the initial estimation of £310 million. In early November 2007, Eurostar conducted a testing program in which 6,000 members of the public were involved in a passenger check-in, immigration control and departure trials, during which the passengers each made 3 return journeys out of St Pancras to the entrance of the London Tunnel. On the 4th of September 2007, the first test train ran from Paris Gare du Nord to London St Pancras. Children's illustrator Quentin Blake was commissioned to provide a huge mural of an imaginary welcoming committee as a disguise for one of the remaining ramshackle Stanley buildings south immediately opposite to the station exit. St Pancras Station was officially reopened as St Pancras International, and the high-speed 1 service was launched on the 6th of November 2007 by Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. Services were extended to Rotterdam and Amsterdam in April of 2018. During an elaborate opening ceremony, actor Timothy West as Henry Barlow addressed the audience, which was also entertained by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra and the singers Lamar and Catherine Jenkins. In a carefully staged set piece, the first Class 395 and 2 Class 373 trains arrived through a cloud of dry ice in adjacent platforms within seconds of each other. During the ceremony, Paul Day's large bronze statue, The Meeting Place, was also unveiled. At a much smaller ceremony, in the 12th of November 2007, the bronze statue of John Betjeman by sculptor Martin Jenkins was unveiled by Betjeman's daughter, the author Candidia Lysett Green. Public service by Eurostar trains via high-speed 1 started on the 14th of November 2007. In a small ceremony, station staff cut the ribbon leading to the Eurostar platforms, and in the same month, services to the East Midlands were transferred to the new franchise East Midlands Trains. The low-link Thameslink platforms opened on the 9th of December 2007, replacing King's Cross Thameslink. St Pancras has retained the reputation of having one of the most recognisable facades of all London termini, and was known as a cathedral of the railways. In Britain's 100 Best Railway Stations by Simon Jenkins, the station was one of only 10 to be awarded 5 stars. The station has bilingual signing in French and English, one of the few in England to do so, and is considered Europe's most passenger-friendly railway station in an index created in 2020 by the Consumer Choice Centre. So let's get started here at London St Pancras International with 700-135. Departing with the 1036 via Thameslink service from Three Bridges to Bedford. Next into the station is 700 120, working the slightly delayed 10:35 to be a Thameslink service from Bedford to Three Bridges. Next in to arrive is 700 047, working the 10:42 to be a Thameslink service from St Albans to Sutton. Whilst next in to arrive is 700 113, working the 10:45 to be a Thameslink service from Peterborough to Horsham. Next out to depart is 700 102, working the 10:47 to be a Thameslink service from Horsham to Peterborough. Up next for departure is 700 129, working the 10:51 to be a Thameslink service from Brighton to Bedford. Arriving next into the station is 700 039, working the 10:57 to be a Thameslink service from St Albans to Sutton. Whilst arriving on his heels is 700 136, working the 11 o'clock to be a Thameslink service from Cambridge to Brighton. Next for departure is 700 121, working the 11:01 to be a Thameslink service from Brighton to Cambridge. Whilst arriving in the background is 700 016, with the 11:05 to be a Thameslink service from Bedford to Three Bridges. And And the final train of the bottom section is 700-001, working the 1106 Gavir Thameslink service from Three Bridges to Bedford. Now transferred onto the high level, we see the departure of 395-006 and 395-014 with the 1120 Southeastern high-speed service to Ramsgate. Arriving to terminate with an East Midlands Railway service off Corby is 360-101 and 360-114.
Please keep your personal belongings with you at all times when on the station, for your safety and...
Arriving at the same time is 222-017 and 374-029 and 374-030. Terminating with an East Midlands Railway service off Nottingham and a Eurostar service off Paris Nord. Next out to depart is 374-033 and 374-034 with the 1131 Eurostar service to Paris Nord.
Southeastern service through Hargate via Canterbury West. Stratford International, Epsfleet International, Ashford International, Canterbury West, Thameslink Parkway, Ramsgate, Broadstairs and Margate. This train has, please note,
next out to depart is 222-003 with the 1132 East Midlands Railway service to Sheffield.
train has 12 coaches.
Next in to terminate with an
Due
East
to a
Midlands
short
Railway
platform,
service off Sheffield
passengers
is
for Canterbury West
222-006.
board the front 8 coaches. Please note, some of the lifts at Ashford International are currently out of service. Please speak to a member of staff if you need further assistance.
Next out to depart is 222-020, working the 11:35 East Midlands Railway service to Nottingham. Next out to depart is 395020 and 395011 with the 11:37 Southeastern High Speed service to Margate. Departed over on the far side is 360-114 and 360-101 with the 11:45 East Midlands Railway service to Corby. Departing 5 minutes late under the head code 5B31 to Cricklewood A to E sidings is 222017. Arriving to terminate with an East Midlands Railway service off Corby is 360-104 and 360-111. Arriving next to terminate with a Southeastern high-speed service off Ramsgate is 395003 and 395025. Whilst arriving to terminate over on the far side with an East Midlands Railway service off Nottingham is 222016. Arriving to terminate with a Eurostar service off Bruxelles Midi is 374002 and 374001.
Southeastern service to Sandwich via Dover Priory. Or Stratford International, Fleet International and Ashford International where the train departs. Please make sure you travel in the correct path of the train. Please travel in the front 6 stations of the train or Folkestone West, Folkestone Central, Dover Priory, Martin Mill, Walmer, Beale and Sandwich. The rear 6 stations of the train will detach and terminate at Ashford International. Platform 12 for the 1204 Southeastern service to Sandwich via Dover Priory. There are usually plenty of seats available on this train.
Also arriving to terminate with a Eurostar service off Paris Nord is 373007 and 373008. Whilst in the background departed is 222006 with the 1202 East Midlands Railway service to Sheffield. Next out to depart is 395025 and 395003 with the 1205 Southeastern High Speed service to Ramsgate. Departed over on the far side is 222008, working the 1205 East Midlands Railway service to Nottingham. Arriving next to terminate with a Southeastern High Speed service off Ramsgate is 395016 and 395012. Arriving to terminate with an East Midlands Railway service off Cricklewood A to E sidings under the head code 5 Foxtrot 37 is 22103. And also arriving to terminate with a East Midlands Railway service off Sheffield is 222014. Next out, two departures 316-111 and 316-104, working the 1215 East Midlands Railway service to Corby.
Please keep your personal belongings with you at all times when on the station. For your safety and security, CCTV is in constant use. If you see something that doesn't look right, please speak to staff or text.
Arriving to terminate with a Southeastern high-speed service off Margate is 395027 and 395021. And your final train of the session is 395012 and 395016, departing with the 1220 Southeastern high-speed service to Ramsgate. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed what you saw, click on the two videos here at the end screen. Helps out the channel. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you are new and got this far. And we'll see you all in the next video, folks, wherever that may take us. We'll see you then, folks.